Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. Is this really loud? It feels loud to me. No? We're good? Okay. Thanks for coming today. My name is Sarah Weber, and I am coming to you today from Madison, Wisconsin. I work at, I feel like I'm at the keynote. Wow. Or not. American Family Insurance is where I come from to tell you some of our customer story today. So we are based out of Madison, Wisconsin. This is my third conference, second time speaking, and really excited just to share a little bit less about our story with Tableau, but about just the varied use cases of how we use Tableau at American Family, really in ways that we go beyond insurance at American Family. My role specifically at the company is in what we call our business enablement team. So I am part of the IT organization, and then underneath that there's an information and data management team. So there's data governance, data solution delivery efforts, and then my team, which is, again, business enablement. And it's really just like it sounds. We try to enable the business in terms of all things data and analytics for our analysts across the company. So I was an analyst in my earlier days at American Family. I've been there for 20 plus years. So I was an analyst for many years. I understand what it's like to be an analyst and how frustrating that can be in terms of data and having the right access to that data and tools. So I was grateful to be able to join the business enablement team right around the same time we were bringing Tableau into the company. So I got to help kind of build up our governance model and our structure really from kind of the ground up, which has been super fun. So it wouldn't be Tableau conference if we didn't try to jazz things up, get it, New Orleans, jazz things up a little bit. And this just feels a little stuffy, right? So let's get excited and go beyond insurance at American Family. I actually found some pants, side note, at the outlet mall next door earlier this week that had these exact same like stars on them, and I so badly wanted to get them, but it kind of felt a little strange, so you get jeans instead. So I could tell you all about insurance and how we use analytics to understand our insurance, but I feel like a lot of that is pretty obvious. We're an insurance company. Of course we're going to be doing analytics in terms of claims and sales and our operations. Of course we're going to want to understand those types of things. And so I will share some of that information today just because a lot of times at insurance sessions, other insurance people come and they want to hear about those types of things. But what I really want to get to, and my kind of passion about today's presentation, is about how we go beyond insurance, how we've really fostered adoption and seen our growth over time because of the ways that we've kind of spread out throughout the organization in new and different use cases. So to give you a little preview of what we're going to talk about today, I thought I would give you just a little bit of a context about American Family, just for a state of reference, and our Tableau journey. We'll stay on level ground when we talk through just some of those core examples of insurance use cases, and just I'll walk you through some of those screenshots. Then we'll go beyond and we'll look at different case studies in that area. And then finally we'll close out with creating your launch plan and how you can try to do some of these types of things at your company and just ways that we've found to make it easier to go into those new and different areas of analytics. So for a little context in today's presentation, I just thought I would share a little bit about American Family. We are a Fortune 500 insurance company, headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin. Like I said, we have about 8,000 employees and 3,000 agents that sell our products. And those agents are located throughout the dark blue shaded states, so 19 states. But in the past few years, we've added a few other companies. The General, I'm sure you've seen some of those commercials with the General doing his little song, and the Home Site company as well. And so actually conference has been great. I finally got to meet some of my Tableau counterparts at those companies right here at TC18. So that's been really good. And what's great about adding those companies into our mix is now we can provide coverage to customers across 49 states. So it's really extended our customer reach. And things like this conference, like I said, where I get to meet some of those people, now we're looking for synergies and opportunities to really understand what each other is doing with Tableau and how can we kind of build and learn from each other. Back in 2016, I was at the conference in Austin. Were any of you there? Yes? Okay, good. And in that presentation, I talked about how I equated Tableau to raising a baby. I was pregnant during a lot of our journey to bring in Tableau. And that presentation was really focused on, like I said, our journey. And from day one of when we thought we need a tool like Tableau at American Family, all the way into having an implementation and moving into even a second server installation. So that presentation, I bring it up here and have a link here because this presentation is the go-to place if you're curious about our governance processes. Change to production, that's always a hot topic, is how you get in an enterprise world, how do you get from a developer sitting at a desk to making that kind of a certified copy in production for your end users. So this presentation will give you some of that insight. Besides the fact that we've grown a lot, not a lot has changed in terms of how we govern. We just have a lot more users and a lot more content and a bigger infrastructure. So let's fast forward to today and kind of look at this history of growth at American Family with Tableau. You can see when we first started out, May of 2014. Maybe I can do this or not. All right. We started out with 66 Tableau desktop licenses. Obviously, gradual purchases over time to where we are today. We're sitting at 366 desktop licenses. And this is strictly, the presentation that I'm giving today is strictly about our American Family brand, not the other companies that I listed on that earlier slide, just for that frame of reference. So we do have 366 total desktop license users, and we'll talk more about who makes up those in just a minute. We also have two separate server environments. So the first one was the environment that we implemented focused for our employees, understanding our business from the inside perspective, corporate employee access. The core purpose was really about data exploration and data discovery. We had other BI tools in-house. It wasn't necessarily intended to replace anything. I'm guessing many of you have had similar experiences. We all know how that goes. It takes off. We started doing a lot more operational reporting, which wasn't our initial intention, but where we ended up going because of the power that Tableau provided. We had a single 8-core implementation in 2014 when we first went in. And then we just recently, long overdue, expanded to a 24-core environment to support the excessive growth we have seen since 4 years ago. Today we have about 8,000 server users, so people who can log in and consume our dashboards on our server. Again, this is just our employee group. And that is 3 times as large as the numbers I presented 2 years ago. So just continual growth of server users and desktop over time. The last stat I looked at, we were at over 2,000 workbooks across 145 different server projects. Now that does include some non-production work. The process that we go through for change to production has some quality checking server spaces or server projects, and then they move into a production space. So those include production and non-production work. Then in 2016, we implemented a second server, and this was focused on our agency group. This provides access to 11,000 different people, including our agents, their staff, and then select corporate users who have a need to kind of see those same views as the agents see it as well. There are 63 workbooks, and it is also a 24-core server environment. This environment supports a much larger audience, but is much smaller in terms of content and the number of developers that support it. There are really just a few desktop editors that are allowed to publish this environment. It's a much more structured, more governed environment, strictly because of the types of things we want to share there and the importance of the type of content that we want to deliver to our agents there. So as we move into looking at our Tableau desktop usage and start talking about the breadth of how we use Tableau, you'll see that the different areas that are using Tableau is pretty widespread. Not surprising, we see business lines listed at the top. So at American Family, this means we have divisions for commercial policies, farm ranch, auto insurance, personal lines insurance, life insurance, all of the different product lines. People working in those business units fall into this category. So again, not surprising, this is how we want to use Tableau. We want to enable business self-service. We want them doing the development. We want them understanding their data, so let's put it in the hands of them. The interesting thing, especially when I was running these numbers, I knew I'd been getting a lot of requests from our IT team for licenses, but I didn't realize just in a comparative setting until I visualized it, that it was really the second highest group. And what's interesting about this is we do believe that the business owns their data and should be the ones doing the work. So these IT licenses are not IT developers doing dashboard development on behalf of the business. It's not part of a solution delivery. It's not business writes a requirement, I need a dashboard to serve this reason with this type of content, hand it over to the wall to IT and back and forth. That's not what this is. This is IT wanting to understand the business of doing IT. It's case management for help desk calls. It's a lot of project management and resource allocation understanding. How are our projects doing? Are they coming in on time? How many resources are assigned? Are they above? Are they below in terms of budget and time and schedule? So that's what this group is doing. There are certainly some areas where we have dedicated new projects and there's a lot of collaboration going on with the business and IT, and so in some of those instances, we've given IT the license because they need to better understand what's happening in this world of Tableau. They hear about it and we say, no, the business has got it, but they need to understand too to be able to support the data structures that need to go underneath it and all of that. So that's been something that we've definitely seen a big shift in, is more requests coming from our IT space. So if you look above the line that I have here on the screen, these are the areas that I kind of consider to be pretty obvious examples of at least where an insurance company, probably many of your companies, would look to use Tableau, right? You want to measure your sales, your finances, all of these types of things. But what we see is an increasing number of people interested in the other types of areas that you see below the line. The teams that are above the line often have analyst groups already in place. They have trained reporting, analyst teams, maybe even some data scientists involved that are ready and willing to either do something like Tableau or maybe are in Python coding and all of those types of things. The teams below the line oftentimes don't really have analyst teams in place. They're struggling to do anything with data. They're starting to find the data. It's starting to come to them, whether it's through vendor reports or manually tracked spreadsheets or whatever it might be related to what they're doing. They don't know what to do with the data. And that's where they're starting to turn to Tableau and say, that might be something that my team can handle. And they start to reach out and wanting to explore more. And so that's where these are coming from. Now, every company is certainly different. So where your line falls in this type of slide will be different, right? But I think the more and more data that we find in this data-centric world, we're going to start to see that line shift. And it's no longer going to be an obvious analytics answer. Everything is obviously needing analytics. So today, that's where I really want to jump in, is showing really different ways that we are using Tableau across this entire spectrum. So first, I will share just some examples of traditional insurance use-based cases. I know that that's an area of interest. So I wanted to make sure to cover that. You'll see some highlighted here. I won't read through it. We'll just jump right in. But before I do that, I want to clarify that I am not the developer on all of these dashboards. So my role is in a support role. I do some Tableau development work myself. I love it. It's wonderful. This conference is amazing. But I am sometimes, unfortunately, not in there developing as much as myself. And we have an awesome team of those 366 editors that really are the brains behind these dashboards. So I have given credit to them, and I can connect you up if you have questions about them and where they're comfortable sharing. I can certainly help connect you with the developers. And last but not least, some of the images are intentionally blurred. It's not your eyes. You're not glazing over this afternoon. just because of data confidentiality and things like that, which I hope you'll understand. And really, I'm not here to talk about American Families metrics and how we're doing in the world. I'm here to talk about how we use Tableau to measure those things. So our first example comes from the product management world. This was actually one of our early successes. As you can expect, we had a need to report on things like the KPIs listed on the screen: premium, new business, existing business, the retention of our customers, or the retention of those policies. So just putting those into a dashboard was a quick and easy way for us to start to look at our data in a different way. Then we bring in comparisons to prior year and to targets, against targets, allowing users to toggle back and forth with parameters and understand, I want to look at it today, I feel like looking at it from a state perspective. Tomorrow I want to look at it by product and those types of things. This report prior to Tableau was a 200-page PDF report. I feel like this is a story that we all tell at Tableau conferences, some crazy Excel file that turned into a PDF that's emailed around, and we are no exception. So yes, this was a 200-page PDF showing every possible option, every slice, every dice on a different page so that I could find the tab that meant something to me as a product manager or whatever my role is at the company. As an early success, this was still just a monthly dashboard. We didn't understand all of the opportunities that were involved with data automation and all of these things we could do, but just getting it into this format of a consistently presented way for our end users to log in, see it when they wanted, interact with it, get to those next level questions. It was an early quick win, and the developer, Dan Mizaki, he kind of equated it to as a great way that they broke the Tableau ice at American Family and their team. By converting this dashboard into Tableau, they found that they were able to get the results out there much faster. They now had data available within the first 5 days of the month. Again, this is in 2014. We've exceeded that since then. But within the first 5 days of the month, which was previously weeks, so that's just that much longer of stale data that your customers aren't getting to those quick insights. All the analyst time, of course, to create that 200-page PDF is now saved, and so much more. In those time savings, what we found is that our analysts then were able to say, okay, this is great, and it's helping people, but meanwhile, I'm going to start working on more current views. So then they came out with weekly opportunities of this type of information, but where it made sense to switch that time frame. And then even daily views. So this dashboard is not something that's even regularly used today as so much, because we have much more up-to-the-minute content that we can provide to our end users. The next example is from the underwriting world. In the homeowner's book of business, we had an effort to look at roof ages. So that is the roof age analyzer. I always love the dashboard names. That I'm sure you guys have some good ones at your company too. My favorite is one we have called the Yesterday Report. Really? We can do better than that, right? But in all seriousness, this was a really cool example of an analyst on a team just thought that there seemed to be some weird things going on. They didn't have a dashboard that was telling them that something weird was going on. They just suspected that maybe some agents weren't understanding the best way to maybe document the roof ages when they go out in an inspection of a home. So the documentation of that and the processes that surround how agents do that, they were just wondering if maybe there were some opportunities for some training or things like that. So they asked their manager if they could just have some time to do data discovery. It wasn't about creating a dashboard. It wasn't about an end product. It was just like, let me just explore the data and see what I can find. And one of those early creative examples was really the scatter plot. The hope was really, like I said, that they would find actionable insights. So information would be pointed out and so obvious to them that they could say, we need to better train our agents to document it in this way. Or it's only a problem in this state. What's going on with our training program there? So by creating this, they definitely found some insights. Then they began to automate these dashboards. And it did become a regularly produced dashboard. Since the implementation of this dashboard, they have seen much better adherence to our best practices for roof age processes. And this model of visualization was then used for many other business processes that were similar in nature so that they could try to find those outlier agents or behaviors that they could work to modify and improve. So the next example is for our second Tableau server environment that I mentioned earlier for agency reporting. Now, these dashboards came to light because the agents were really hungry for a one-stop shop to understand the health of their business. So it's not just about selling insurance for an agent, it's a small business to them. And so they have staff, they have salaries that they're paying out, they're covering insurance, they have all these things that managing an insurance agency is all about. It's not just how much am I selling or how many claims did I have. So what they needed is just one place where they could go just say, how is my business doing? So we created this dashboard for them. Now this view is very simplified again, but the motivation, like I said, was to not only give them that one-stop shop, but also to save the time and the resources that were involved by all the people that were trying to do something like this for them, their staff people, their assistants, whoever that might be. We did some early measurement to see, just to prove out a business case for having a new server installation and all of that. That business case really came about because it was estimated that there were 24 hours per month that were spent by over 140 different people across the organization that were searching for this type of information, whether it be in PDF reports or in automated Bob J reports or whatever it might be throughout the company. They were compiling, creating their own pretty spreadsheets, all in different formats, oftentimes giving different numbers to different people. So 24 hours a month, 140 different people. We do the math on all of that. The time savings alone, it was well over $1 million to do something like this for our agents, if we could do it right? That's the important thing. So we went on this journey to implement a second environment. We have this small team dedicated to publishing to it. They do collaborate with some of our other developers, but they are the core people that manage this environment. The dashboards we provide them go well beyond what you see here. You'll see KPIs that are listed on that left-hand side. Some of the obvious things that, if you're familiar with insurance and just agencies, will sound familiar to you. This is a slimmed down version of a portal page. So we do use a custom portal that we built. So for an agent, they think they're just going to a website. They know it's Tableau in the background. They all love Tableau. But they're not logging into their Tableau server environment. They have a portal that they do log into. So we support that as well. This is that first level view. So I can just see at this highest level, how am I doing in my revenue, premium, all these different KPIs. From there, they can drill down at different levels, in some cases all the way down to a transactional level detail. That was something that was really important to them early on. They needed to trust this data and say, you said I had 10 sales yesterday. No, I had 11. And they look at it and then they realize, oh, the transactional, you're right. So some of that building trust in the system, those were components that we needed to build into the report. But over time, what we saw and have seen in the usage is that they don't need to go down to those views so often. They're good, they see their up or down arrow, and their trends over time on some of the other more detailed views. So it's been working out very well, as you can see by some of the quotes on the screen. The other thing that I'll mention is behind the square with those quotes, there are some filtering options. And what this does is it allows corporate users like myself, or if you're in a management position over a sales territory, the ability to see rolled up views. So it's not just about one agent in their agency, in their own little world. It's about their manager and seeing all of their agents and how they're doing against one another and who do they need to work with the most and those types of things. As a corporate user, I see the whole company level and I can see how are we doing in our sales at the company and drill on down as far as I want to go. Moving on to a finance example. So we for the longest time, have produced another monthly, quarterly operating report. It's basically the health of American family in terms of our finances, looking at key metrics related to premium written, gain from operations, adjusted underwriting expenses, loss adjustments. Then again, just knowing straight numbers doesn't do you a lot unless you have some comparisons to know how you're doing in relation to maybe the prior reporting period or against our targets for the company. So by integrating all of this into a dashboard format, we're able to get people insight into their data much faster than in our old world. So this is another classic example of that, hundreds of pages of an Excel workbook that took months to create, and not kidding with months for the finance reports. So bringing that decrease in creation time down, saving their analysts time, of course, faster speed to market, quicker results in terms of understanding the health of the business. And our last example comes from an operational standpoint, specific to call center management. So this is a dashboard that we have created that allows tracking and understanding the calls that are coming in from our agents to an internal sales team. This is specific to our personal lines area. And at the highest level, you'll see on the left-hand side, it's just kind of the general state of the state, right? It's our inventory of calls that are coming in. Who's calling? When are they calling? What are they calling about? By understanding that information, the team is really able to identify training opportunities on both a widespread level, as well as understanding maybe outlier agents who may need some additional personal attention. So if you look at the scatter plot on the screen, users are able to see each dot is an individual agent plotted by the number of calls that are coming in. And in this example, their in-force policy count. So how big is their policy in terms of this line of insurance? So obvious things that point out, you have the orange, this is not gonna work for me, bubble on the top, nearly 1,800 phone calls for this reporting period. Relatively low book of business. Now, by hovering over this dot in the interactive dashboard, I see the agent's tenure, and that they're a pretty new agent. So of course they're calling a lot. They have a lot more questions. But does this give us some more opportunity to reach out to them or maybe mix up our training programs? Again, back to the agent practices and just understanding how they are thinking. It's much different in the agent world than the internal world. And so this gives us insight into their inner workings and how we can better help them as a company. Now, prior to this dashboard, we were actually trying to do within the teams a lot of the tracking for this. That's the big question, right, is where does this data come from? We were able to automate a lot of this data through voice recognition and all of those types of things to track this data automatically and then be able to produce these reports. It's been so successful, we're actually looking at applying the same technology to our chat so we can better understand how the online chat questions, maybe how those vary. I think that'll be really interesting, especially when you look at call categories. When are they choosing to use chat versus call in, those types of things. So over time and through some of those examples, so many more, we really started to see continued success with Tableau. We saw our end user adoption of our dashboards and the maturity of our developers and the types of work they were doing really start to increase across the enterprise. Through marketing of the dashboards that existed and then having engagement events throughout the company, like a hosted Tableau day, we also sponsor, or host, I should say, our local Tableau user group at our company. It just brings the word, even just the word Tableau, more to the forefront of people who aren't traditional analysts and start to ask more questions about what it is and what it could do for them. So really, after we had our first Tableau day, that was really a turning point, I think, where I started getting a lot more people stopping me in the hallway or sending me a quick email and saying, I saw you had something about Tableau, or we also use now Yammer, internal social media. I see you posting a lot about Tableau. Can you tell me more about it? Is this something that could help me in my HR team or whatever team it may be? And I like to talk to people. I like to talk to people about analytics. I like to talk to people about Tableau. So I said, sure, meet at the coffee shop in our building. and we would just talk about what they're trying to do. We have limited licenses, just like everyone. I mean, 366 is a pretty healthy number. But if there was a good, compelling reason and the types of things they wanted to do, there is no reason not to let them just explore and see what they can do. Then we would just touch base over time, right? If they didn't need that license or they weren't using it maybe to the extent that they thought they could, then they'll just, give it back and just, all be good corporate stewards. So we had a lot of those conversations really to get together and just figure out if it could maybe be a good fit for them. But that's really where the tricky part comes in. People and teams all over American Family and all over the world are really starting to be interested in digging into their data, but really until this recent time when data was everywhere, and they're hearing that, every decision you make should be made with data, right? It should be a data-driven decision. Everyone buys into this idea, but they don't know how to get there. Some of these teams that I were working with, they would maybe have a spreadsheet, maybe a chart mixed in, and if they had someone really good on their team, they had a pivot table so they could get some interactivity, give their end user something to work with. But if you fast forward today, that's just not good enough, right? So that's why they're reaching out and wanting tools like Tableau. Now, Gartner highlights this need in the quote you see on the screen. I read this article. I like to read about all the doing good with data movement and all of that and get involved in it. And this struck me not only from the doing good with data perspective, but just in general. And it fit in nicely, I thought. They talk about how nonprofits and other organizations in general can certainly begin to use data, but that they often struggle to have the resources in their teams or the tools at their disposal to be successful. And that's where I find that collaboration across your organization and reaching out across the traditional boundaries of your teams can really help. And that's where we've seen success at American Family. So that's where I'd like to transition and talk about some of the maybe more non-traditional areas of how we use Tableau at American Family. So the first is in measurement of some of the robotic process automation that we've implemented in the company. Now this is still in an operational standpoint, still with insurance, but it's coming from a different perspective. In 2014, the reporting team that existed in the personal lines area began exploring how they could start using automation to help improve their reporting processes. In the old days, again, prior Tableau, we're doing a lot of copying and pasting of data from spreadsheet to spreadsheet or across tabs. How could we start to leverage some level of automation? Even in the early days, I remember creating, macros and all of these types of things just to make your life easier as an analyst. So they came up with some opportunities for automating some of their reporting processes, and other teams started taking notice, like, why is your report getting to me so much faster, or those types of things. So they were starting to share the benefits of this robotic process automation, and the operational team said, we want to know about that too. We do a lot of manual, tedious tasks in our operational file work and those types of things. Can you help us? So they gradually over time started implementing these different automation capabilities. And in more recent, with just technology, now it's formal RPA, as we all like to hear it. But what these dashboards do is it measures the success of those programs. And what we've found is that by simply measuring it, we're not only showing the value that it brings, right? I can tell you in a meeting that, we think we saved $1 million by doing that, but until you show it to them and they see spikes like this on the screen, or items in red, or whatever it might be, it doesn't really hit home the true value that this automation team that they really wanted to form and focus on, the value that could bring to the organization. So like I said, as all good visuals do, your eye should be drawn to things like the spike you see on the screen. This was actually an example of a time when a defect was found in our data systems. And the effort to manually clean that up, to have the teams involved who could do this data cleanup, was about $1 million in time and 6 months of labor to clean up this data defect. Instead, they automated the process. It took them about 25 hours to do the development of these automation processes, and it was done. And we saw a huge time savings, $1 million, because that was the estimate, reflected here. Now, I share that example not as like, yay, go us, this is an awesome thing we did, but it's really about the fact that, again, by having it on this dashboard, there's no way you're sitting down, or your CEO, or whoever's looking at this report, is gonna look at that and say, whoa, what was that $1 million savings? And like, that's an instant win for your team, right? Showing the value that your team is bringing through dollars, or time savings, or whatever is important to that user, or to your company, it just speaks volumes. It speaks for itself when you can see it in pictures, which we all know. The next is an example in the data management world. So I talked about that data defect earlier. We've started to use Tableau in a lot of types of things related to data management lately. This is a great example of collaboration throughout our organization. So what we were finding is that our business teams were saying, man, our data sucks. Like, there are so many defects, I can't do my analytics, like, come on, IT, help me. And IT is on the other side saying, no, we just implemented that project. There are only 5 defects, and there are these, and you said they were no big deal, and so that's why we went in live. So like, there's this constant kind of misunderstanding of how clean our data is, or what really needs to be done to be able to create beneficial analytics in the organization. So what the team did is, the IS side and the business side came together and just said, let's figure this out once and for all. Let's figure out what data we're gonna measure, how we're gonna measure it, what is deemed an actual defect or not, come up with those definitions. It's all about the conversation, right? We all know this. So they got together, worked together. It wasn't about, throwing things back and forth over a wall, worked together, and they created this Tableau dashboard where they could understand the state of our data. And they built it together, they came to the consensus together on what it would mean. So this was a really great success story from that perspective and collaboration, and they all have this single place they can go to understand. The next example is another famously titled report, the one-stop shop. The personal lines reporting and technology team wanted a way for their end users to be able to find the dashboards and whatever reporting there was being done in their teams. This isn't a super fancy dashboard. I'm sure you guys all have, different examples at your company that some are, brilliant in terms of visualization. This is really about a means to an end, and it's really working for them. So their customers were already familiar with using Tableau for all sorts of different types of visualization and KPI reporting and all of this. So they thought, how can we get them to better understand where to find the reports we create? They had a SharePoint site. It's just a big list of, it was this, just a list of links, but that was it. How do I know what to go to, if it's trusted or not? So they created this dashboard so that they could see the different types of reporting that is available, a hyperlink right to that report, whether it was a Tableau dashboard or something else that's created outside of Tableau, the views, popularity of that dashboard, and then some simple hyperlinks on the dashboard. And this was the interesting piece, was that as a developer, we know that inserting a hyperlink on a dashboard is a super easy thing to do. But that was a huge win from the end user community. If they couldn't find what they needed, they said, I know I submitted a request for a certain type of report. I don't know where to find that again. Where's that e-form? What's this? By putting it all in this one-stop shop, they can just get to what they need and be able to check on the status of their requests, jump to the report itself, and this can kind of be their landing zone of sorts. Now, when we jump into the human resources world, we have a couple of different examples. In this one, there was an interest in finding a better way to report out the leadership assessment results. So I'm sure at many of your companies, there are surveys that are given out to your employees on how their leaders are doing, opportunities for improvement, all of those types of things. So we, of course, do those surveys as well. The results were coming in, and they were looking for a better way to share that information back out to the managers themselves who were being surveyed, but then also, of course, their upline, so that a senior level manager could say, how was, my lower level managers doing? How are they doing? So the nice thing about this dashboard is it gave a really nice presented and clean way in comparison to ways they had maybe seen that data in the past. There was also a lot of concern, of course, about data security, right? A manager doesn't want their results shown to other managers. And the early release of this dashboard, Laura Wagner is here at conference this week. She was telling me when I was interviewing about this use case, she was telling me that early on, she didn't realize the value that, or that row-level security might be an option that could help her. So she was doing, like in many of our old days, a lot of copying and pasting of results. So she gets this export out of the survey system, and she would say, okay, now I'm gonna do leadership A survey results, and she'd copy and paste the data in. She'd have to do that for every single leader at the company. She said she listened to an entire audiobook while she was doing it one night. Like, crazy. So enter row-level security, and we're able to do that one time, filter it down, everyone's comfortable, they can only see the results they're supposed to see for themselves, or if they're a leader, they can see only their downline, which is also what we do for the agency dashboards. I didn't mention that earlier. So an agent only sees their own business through row-level security. So anyway, the other great thing about what they've done with this dashboard is areas of opportunity, so the areas in orange, are highlighted, and then those connect up to resources that our human resources teams have provided to them. So by clicking on this, then they can say, what resources can I do to improve how I'm doing on question 6? Because that's my area of opportunity. So by bringing that in, bringing it full circle and giving them the information, and then the next action steps, it gives them the tools they need to become a better leader. Talent management. So our talent management does internal training for both our internal employees as well as our agents across the US. Here we see examples of how we review course completion data across the organization, and whether that be for agents or for our employees or our agents. It really helps us understand how our staff is tracking against different types of training courses, be it mandatory training or things that they might have to take for different job roles. We leverage these dashboards as well to help inform decisions on our training assignments. So if we see an area that's really struggling to get through some of the training courses that they need to do, we might realize we need to mix things up again. We might need to get more trainers in that area or do a better job with some of our materials. Corporate responsibility. This is another area that I really like to talk about. I've been a member of our local United Way campaign for many years. This year I was chairing our campaign. It actually ends in 2 days, and I'm not there to see how the results are going. But what I've been wanting to do for many years is try to apply some analytics to our campaign. It's not about individual giving and me knowing who's doing what. It's about these rolled up levels and understand the trends of giving across the organization and better understanding the employees and how they choose to give, whether it be for United Way or some of the other types of philanthropy that we offer our employees in the company. So this is one of the newer areas. It's just kind of started getting going this year, but what we do is we not only track the current state of a campaign, so I can regularly go in there and see how are things going, are there certain divisions that aren't as engaged and making their decision to give or not. Those types of things that we can reach out to leaders and help encourage them, or maybe show up to a town hall meeting and give a presentation, all of those types of things. So kind of those high-level metrics of just understanding where we are, but then looking at post-campaign, doing kind of a post-mortem to say, all right, what did we see? Are we doing better or worse than last year? Are there different giving groups that really changed in their desire to give or how much they're giving? All of those types of things, as well as salary type scenarios. Are managers more apt to give a different amount? Those types of things just helps us better target our campaign to maybe present differently or talk to people in a different way. If we can better understand people's giving preferences, we can do those types of things. Also on the horizon from the corporate responsibility perspective, we actually have a division focused completely on corporate responsibility. We have a Dreams Foundation that we provide grants across the company. We actually just launched our customer grant nomination. So if you're an American Family customer, you can nominate a nonprofit in your local area to receive a grant, simple online form. Having our customers do that, and we also have a similar program for our agents, having them fill out this information, who they would like to nominate and why. Now we have all of that data to understand our customers, who they want to see money go to, and what is their belief system. If they all care about one organization, if maybe United Way isn't big in their area, they all believe in a different organization in their area. What does that mean about that customer base, and how can we better understand them to better serve them? Another perspective from corporate responsibility is in terms of the environment. We recently installed solar panels on many of our headquarters buildings, and so we are using Tableau to monitor their effectiveness and any outliers or items that may show up on a heat map might cause us to send a drone up and see if maybe one of the solar panels is offline and we need to do something about it. We're also working on bringing in building maps specific to energy usage, so we can say, what is going on in building A on floor 2? There's a party with a lot of potluck crock pots plugged in. What's happening? Why are we using so much energy? So this type of information from our facilities team really helps us get a handle on expenses, energy usage, how we're impacting the environment, and all those types of things. We also are really excited about the idea of doing an overall corporate responsibility. So an overall corporate responsibility report is something that exists, and especially in the world of corporate responsibility and the industry of that, it's kind of a big deal to have this, this is our annual report in terms of how we affect the world around us. And so we're hoping to transition that into a Tableau dashboard, which will be really cool. So that's still on our horizon, as well as sustainability and waste management and how we measure our waste contribution to the environment. And last but not least is an internal audit example. And this was an interesting situation where it was right after our Tableau day. And I had on our digital signs that are throughout our company, there were, come to Tableau Day, learn about it, see different use cases. We did something similar to this at that event. And so someone from the internal audit group came over and said, I feel like we can be using analytics to better our processes for internal auditing. Right now, their processes, so this group of auditors will go to different teams and they'll have meetings with them and do an interview to say, talk about the processes and how they do their jobs, right? It could be anything at the company. And through those conversations and in looking at some reporting that's out there, they would be able to find areas that maybe they should audit. But it was really kind of that shot in the dark. It was just based on this conversation. And I've been in some of those meetings, and it's a little, you're nervous. You're with an auditor. Are they asking? Are you being fully honest because you're just nervous? Like, are they going to like what I'm saying? All of these types of things. And so by bringing analytics into it, how can we have better quality audits in terms of just the content we're receiving and reviewing and the amount that we can look at, right? It's not a manual person looking at paper files like in the old days. Now we can scan hundreds and thousands of rows of data to find opportunities to improve our processes. So what we did is this team is not used to doing analytics, right? They're not used to using a tool like Tableau. They're using Excel, things like that. So what we did is we had first a half-day training session, and I got them up to speed on using web edit and web authoring. So we found a common data set that they would hopefully all have a decent understanding of. And then I trained them on just the basics of visualization in general, because they weren't used to doing that. And then the second half of the day, we let them start to play. And they had free reign. There was no specific business question they were looking to solve. They could just explore the data, get familiar with using a tool like Tableau. And then as we jumped into day 2, it was much more hands-on. I was walking around and helping them, and they were calling it this hackathon. The intention was they would all do a final share out at the end, and somebody would win. It would be this big thing. And it ended up not even needing to go that route. They were all really engaged in what they were doing, and the coolest thing about that situation was the different groups that were participating in this all brought their own set of experiences to the mix. Some came from different lines of insurance in their previous jobs. They all have all these, unintentional biases that they have and perspectives. And so the stories that they each found in that same data set were all over the board and all worthy and interesting and good target areas for an audit type of situation. But they all were very different. And it was just a good reminder, I think we all know it, but just that collaboration and not just sitting in your own little bubble, reviewing your work with your end customers or the business people that understand the data is so important because you just never know where that data will take you and the results you'll find. So now they are using Tableau and more in some pockets than others, but to try to find opportunities for better auditing processes. So, creating your launch plan. So that's just a sampling of some of the ways that we're going beyond insurance, as well as the examples in the insurance world. And I'm not going to pretend that every conversation I have with somebody who wants, to get Tableau and dig in ends up with, magical dashboards that, save us millions of dollars. By no stretch of the imagination is that true, but what we're seeing is greater interest and exploration. And a tool like Tableau can bring it to the masses, right? It's easy. They can understand that they see their data, they own their data, they know it, just by dragging and dropping the power that that brings. And we've all done those demos or seen those demos, even with Superstore, that it just, the lights that go on. And so when we can do that for people who aren't in traditional analytics settings, it can really be powerful. So Gartner's article that I referenced earlier talks about ways that different programs can be developed, but and there are some really good ideas, but these are my modified versions. So the first one is finding engaged users in your teams or outside your team that are passionate about your goals. So in my example with United Way, I knew I was chair of the campaign. I know Tableau. I can do all of this, and I do get in there and play. But I also knew that I needed more people in kind of my corner on that. I needed some other Tableau dashboard developers, but it needed to be somebody who was passionate about it, who was interested in digging in and wanted to see something valuable come out of this. You can't just have reporting factories. You need people who are engaged in wanting to learn Tableau, wanting to have successful results out of what it is. The comments about going outside your team, I think, is also really great if you can do it, and relates to the second bullet, I guess. Allowing data and analytics teams or users from your lines time to freelance. Reach out to the human resources team, reach out to these other teams and offer some time for them to be able to do analytics and help them out. They're not used to seeing the data presented in this way. They might need some guidance, some collaboration to do it together. And it helps bring creativity to that person who is, how many dashboards can I create about auto profitability in my lifetime? I want to do something new and different, do something cool like I see on Viz in the Day, those types of things. If you give them time to work in these new and different areas, like the solar energy stuff, that's really cool. It's not my day job, but I could probably help you create a cool dashboard about it and maybe teach you some things along the way. One way that we have really fostered this is in a little bit less of a formal setting. So we do Tableau doctor sessions like they have here at conference at our company. Twice a week we offer them. It's an open house setting. And we find that that's where a lot of this stuff comes out. So they're new users, again, they haven't maybe even had formal Tableau training yet. They just get the tool. They come in and they're like, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me? And those are the best people to come into a doctor session, right? I'm always nervous they're going to come in and ask me some crazy, thing that I don't know. Those are the fun people to help because they're hungry for it and they're amazed by anything you can give them. So a lot of times it'll start out in that doctor session and then people can't help but want to reach out and they'll have side meetings or they'll meet at the coffee shop or whatever to kind of work through their development issues. So it may not even be a formal structured freelance time, it's authorized by a manager. But But your passionate Tableau users, people who want to come to this conference, they want to do that. You know, they want to take the time to do that. And then leverage external resources for inspiration and knowledge. Don't just sit in your world and do your report factory, your Tableau dashboard, you know, stuff that you do. You gotta get creative. Attend conferences like this so you can see what other people are doing. Host your own Viz competition or hackathon. We've done those at both our company as well as at our local Tableau user group. And it just, again, sparks new ways of looking at things and gets people thinking, I wonder if Tableau could help us in my team. Viz for Social Good, Makeover Monday, all of the things that, you know, we all love about Tableau. So with that, I guess I just hope that some of this sparked some kind of interesting idea of teams that you could talk with in your company about seeing if Tableau could help them, or maybe you're in that space and that's why you're here at conference. So yeah, I hope it was helpful. Thank you.